Hello and welcome to today's session about Power BI tips and tricks. So today we'll be showing some cool tips and tricks in Power BI as we go along the session. So let's get started. Let's call out for the amazing sponsors today for Scottish Summit, Scriptrunner, DQ Global, Proximo 3, Redspire, Adelasis, and Hitachi Solutions. So before we get started, just a brief background about myself. This is Triparna and I have been working with Microsoft practice in IBM for last 15 years. And I have been working as a BI architect in Microsoft Analytics area. So I have been specializing in Power BI since inception and delivering the reporting solutions for Power BI and other BI solution areas in different domains and geographies. You can reach out to any of these social handles, Twitter, TriparnaRay123, or you can send me a connection request in LinkedIn, or maybe many of you are already there in my LinkedIn connections, or you can just send me a mail in gmail.com. So now moving on to today's session. So a large part of the business users or the end users we work with in terms of implementing a BI solution, they are using Microsoft Excel because that has been the go-to tool for the BI space for all the end users. And the way they visualize the data, analyze the data, and work with the data with Microsoft Excel, they are very convenient and confident about the way they work in it. But as they make a move towards Power BI, as Power BI has emerged as a enterprise tool and as a self-serve as well, so they should have the similar kind of look and feel in Power BI as well to give them that kind of confidence going forward. So many times we come across this kind of question that I do it in Excel, why can't in Power BI? So one of the clients that we were working on was a global leading manufacturer of snacks and beverages. And the end users for that company were making such a move. And when they come to us, they were having such expectations. So we have to go back and think that how we can leverage Power BI features, or we can work around or hack some of the features and give them that kind of features and ability to them to their data visualization so that they can get that confidence back and they can move on with Power BI. Because Power BI is quite a different tool, right? It works with a data set in the background and they cannot do a simple things like sorting, moving things up and down as they used to do in Excel. So today I will be covering few of the scenarios that we came across and we have implemented over a period of time where we could give them that kind of feelings that, okay, this is the way we can do it. Let's see how we got these issues or problems or use cases, and we have come up with the solution. So first one, I will be talking about the forecast, how to add a forecast. For example, we have a very common simple data set, which is like for the sales or volume showing over a period of time. And the company wants to see that what will be my projection or the forecast till the end of this year. For example, you can see in the screen, the transaction volume we have till from January to March. And in March, it has started showing the dip due to pandemic. And they would like to see how it will fare if it continues like this till end of 2020. Now let's hop to Power BI to see how we can do that. So this is the Power BI desktop file, PBIX file, and this is the area where we work with all the visuals. Now, one of the visual is the transaction volume, which is being shown here. So if we select that to implement our forecast there, so this tab usually we use for access and legends, and this tab we are using for properties, setting the properties. And the third tab, this is not usually used by us. This is the Advanced Analytics tab, which is out of the box in Power BI. And we can leverage that without any code or any complex configuration. We can have our forecast lines drawn there. So we can go to forecast here. We can just add it. You can give any name you want. And then in the forecast length, for example, we are interested in next 9 months because we have the data till March. And then we go here to the ignore last this many months. And then the confidence level is like confidence interval we put here, which controls the range of the upper range and lower range of the forecast, because there are number of variables which contribute to the forecasting, right? So it's important to show the range in which the, for example, here the volume will fall in the next 9 months. So that will vary if you have the confidence level interval here. And seasonality, if you have any product seasonality or things like that for its sales in summer more, and this kind of special things you want to take into consideration for the algorithm, then it will be useful to put the seasonality here. And just once you put all these details and you click on apply, and boom, it's here. So just with few clicks, we will be able to see this transaction volume showing the forecast for next 9 months. And this has been done by the out-of-the-box algorithm in Power BI, which is using the exponential smoothing. But in some cases, what happens is many companies, they have their own customized algorithm, which they want to put in place in terms of some forecasting mechanism. So they can have some machine learning models run, or in some way they have the output from their forecast and they can put as a data set, which can be again visualized in Power BI. But here we are just showing how we can do it with the out of the box Power BI mechanism. Let's move on to the next one. This is the measure slicer. So we work with measures like values when we work with reports or dashboards, right? So these measures, when we work with a number of measures or values in a report or dashboard, then sometimes what happens that all the measures may not be applicable in context at a certain point in time. Giving an example in this context will be a dashboard which has data across multiple countries. And when we see this data, some of the measures will be applicable for some countries, whereas the others will be applicable for other countries. And we can have them shown one by one here, right? But it will be more convenient for the users if they can switch between the measures depending upon which countries. They can just select the measure in a slicer and they can see only that applicable values, because the other value will be zero for them, right? If we show both next to each other. So just head on to Power BI to show how we can do this. So we have a measure here where we can just show that, okay, date and sales and cost here. And we have brought just a simple slicer here. And the slicer value is drawn by just an independent list. We can just have it here. And how to make that dynamic, we can just bring a table, a simple table visual. And we can write a simple DAX code. So showing you the DAX, talking about the DAX, I will just show a simple DAX here. So DAX is a functional language which was like introduced for Power Pivot for Excel. So Excel users are very close to it, but then it was extended to analysis service and also to Power BI. So this language helps us to have some small code snippets like this to solve the simple or complex problems across multiple tables. And it helps us to extend our visuals and take the analytics to a next level. So this is a simple DAX code, for example, sum of this particular measure, which is being stored in the measure called cost. So likewise, we will just create a new measure. I've just clicked a column, but we need to click a new measure. So we have a new measure here, and just for the interest of time, I have this code snippet here, which is pretty straightforward. The sales or cost, that is just a name of the measure. You can give anything you like. Then we have a variable declared here called value, and the selected value of the slicer, which is just an independent list of values, which is being stored here. And it has a switch function here where it dynamically returns the sales or cost depending upon your slicer selection. So once we have that, we can bring this here, just select this particular one. We have this date field here, and then we have this sales by cost. And this is shown here, and the way we can toggle is we can just select on the cells and we can have that. So that's how easy it is. Now let's move to the next one. Image grid. Image grid is something that is really useful. For example, we have a scenario like we have a dashboard again for multiple countries. And for multiple countries, we will have this flag for the multiple countries to be shown. And it has to be shown dynamically. Like, for example, in Excel, they can have all these flag of the countries sitting side by side. And here we can see that how we can show in Power BI is whatever countries are selected, we can just bring those images and we can just show in a form of a grid. So let's see in Power BI how we can implement that. So this is just a simple slicer that I already have with the name of the countries. And to get that, we will just go to get more visuals to import that custom visual called image grid. And once we have this marketplace, we just need to select here. Just let's give a little bit space. And here we have the country flags in a column called image. And one thing I would like to show here is the image is having the data category as image URL. And then this image, we are just putting it here, and it is getting all the flags from the Power BI dataset, because in this case, I have just embedded the images of the respective countries in the Power BI dataset. But it can be done from any dynamic sources, for example, Azure Blob Storage, and the link for that I have given in my reference sections in my deck. So let's move on. So now here we have all these, as we can see here, and there are some couple of settings which is really useful, which I'd like to show. Here we can have the maximum width and how many can come in a single row, and then the render type, like for example, the weighted circles, like the size of the flags will vary on depending upon the values. And then we have the grid, which is like shown in the grid format. So like that, it can show different images on a particular visual, and which is really useful. So if we have Germany now, so Germany will also be added to the list. So Germany flag. So this is really useful for us. So that's how we have seen that how we have, for example, we have other use cases like, for example, some products. So depending upon the number of products being selected, we want to see the journey of the product or the sales of the product, etc. And we would like to see all the products coming on the top dynamically, the images are being shown. So this image grid is really helpful for those kind of purposes. For the next one, we would like to see the Enlightened slicer. This is also another custom visual, but we will just see that why we need this, how it adds values to us. That is, for one of the normal slicers, the standard slicers out of the box in Power BI, What we can see is if we select March, then it is just shows March, and whatever other data is there, data points are completely hidden from the visual. Whereas for the Enlightened slicer, we can just see that, okay, if we select March, then March is highlighted, whereas all the other data points are still visible, and we can see that where our data stands. So this is really helpful, and let's see from Power BI perspective how we can implement that. So first, let's see how a standard visual works. So if we select on the March, then it just show March. And for the Enlightened slicer, we just need to go here again in the marketplace, get more visual. And once it appears, then let's, okay, this is the Enlightened slicer. We can just add it. So we can just bring this and just add the month and year we have. But it appears like this because it's shown in a horizontal format. We can just go here and change it to vertical format. And just to show it in a better way, we can filter the data. You can see here how we can filter it also. With the advanced filtering, we can just select show the items which contains 2020. And here we can show that, okay, if we select on March, then it just highlights March, whereas the user gets a visual appeal that, okay, where this stands. So that's how the Enlightened slicer works. And it's really adds without having a line of code or any complex configuration. It gives it that how it's hides that instead of the standard visuals, it shows the complete visibility of other values in a simple bar chart. For the next one, it is the dynamic axis. So dynamic axis is really helpful because if we have some requirement, for example, we have a feedback app, and the feedback apps gives us like excellent, good, and needs improvement, right? This kind of feedback and the count of the feedback over a period of time. And whereas we have another, in another category, we would like to show that the channels of feedback has come like through calls, through newspaper, or through website. And how we can do it is a trick which we'll be sharing now. So I would also like to highlight here that how we can do it in another way using bookmark as well. So just to give a brief background of the bookmark, like bookmark is something that we usually use for hiding or showing something in Power BI. For example, we click this, we show this, we click another button and we show another visual. So in the background, two visuals are overlapped and then they are being shown in this fashion that it appears that, okay, we are switching windows. But from development perspective, we would like to create, we need to create two visuals, develop it and maintain it. If tomorrow we would like to change, for example, a font in the visual, so we have to do it in both. Whereas this particular solution gives us a very smart and interesting way of implementing it using a single visual, which is not overlapped. So I will just bring a simple chart here. And again, we will use a small calculated column. So we can have this new column here. And just for the interest of time, I have this once again. This is also a very simple snippet of code, which is like saying that, okay, this is the dynamic axis. You can give whatever name you like. And then in the dynamic axis category, it checks that if it is search, then just pass the rating or else just pass the month and the year. Once it is there, press enter. And it is there. And how we can bring this in the dynamic axis, we just bring that dynamic column. And then we can just bring this rating and the count of the rating here. Okay, so let's see how it works. If we have this search, then we can see this. Another thing I will show as the dynamic axis is showing up here. This is also a very common trick in Power BI. When we don't want to show any text, then we just replace it with a dot. And then this is having the search, this category, then this axis is showing call, newspaper, and website. Whereas when we switch the category, then it shows the feedbacks over a period of time. So this way we can implement a dynamic axis for a chart, and which is really helpful. So this way we have learned that how in the same visual we can just avoid creating tens of bookmarks, and we can just have in a particular visual where the axis is working dynamically based on your selection. Now let's move on to the waterfall chart. So waterfall chart is something which is like out of the box available in Power BI, but it only supports non-stacked ones, which is just, it will see the one measure, and depending upon that, it will show the waterfall chart. But we have a requirement which is like a waterfall chart. If you see this, then here it works like this. It is much more customization is there. Like it has some values which needs to be shown as negative, red, and positive, green, and then it has these bars, and it says like should be stacked. So if we have a requirement like this, then it is required for us to see how we can implement this. So the requirement is a bit complex. So the implementation needs to step-by-step consideration, but we can show how we have done it in Power BI. So for this one, we can see the end result is how they wanted it. The bars are stacked, and we have the positive values and the negative values, and the color coding as it is required, and even one bar is in a different color. So everything is customized here. Now let's go to the data and select the one which is the data set for this particular. What we can see is this particular data set is showing that previous year base baseline, and these are the like different sets for their supply chain, and these are the amount field, for example. And here we have all these stacks which should see in each of these sequences under this particular bar. Then we have this planned initiative, and here we can see something we have termed as negative under planned initiative and some as dummy. And with these, what we are doing is, again in headwinds, we have something positive and something dummy. So what we're doing is we are using these sets, and we have manipulated this data in the back end for us to use it in the front end to devise in this kind of visual appeal. So this visual outcome is only possible if we have these. So this dummy, we have a data point, but in the front, we will just hide it by making the background as white, for example. We'll just come to that in a minute. So here we will just have this dummy and positive. For example, positive will be shown in red and negative will be shown in green, because it's something like a waste management we are doing. And then we have all these one by one. So this is the way we have organized the data set. So, and then use it in the front end to have this visual outcome. And here we have seen that we have stacked all these sequence on basis of this, so that we can show as per the supply chain and all these stacks one after another for each of these bars. And here for the plan initiative or the headwinds, we have the data points here, but that are hidden through the conditional formatting here. And these green and red is coming whether it is positive or negative in the data set, and then we are again conditionally formatting the color for these, and finally we have this. And for the legend, we don't have the legend switched on here. If we need the legend, then we need to switch off, because if we switch on the legend here, I will just show here, then it will come for all dummy and everything, like, and we don't want that. So what we need to do is we need to switch off, we need to take off these stacks and only have those, and take a screenshot of that and use it as an image for the legend to make it more meaningful. Thirdly, what we kind of requirement is that it should come in this sorting order, one by one by one. And we are sorting by description, but usually by description, if we sort it, then it will be sorted in the alphabetical order, and in that sense the best in class should come in the first, but it is not. So for that, we can just use a Power BI functionality here. So for description, we want this to be sorted by this, but in the background we want to sort the column by sort alpha. And sort alpha, we can see that all the previous year baseline is by sort alpha A, and planned B, and then headwind C. So when we are doing it in the background, then it is coming, effect is like this. So I can understand that it may seems a bit complex at this stage, but once we go through it and you will have the slides and the recordings, then if we follow step by step and see the data set and what is done in the front end in the Power BI file, then it will be quite clear. Now moving on to the next one, that is the Heatmap. Heatmap is something that is available in Power BI, but it just have only one measure it supports. But we have a requirement, like some of the users were working in a project in Tableau, and where more than one measure is supported. So they wanted the same look and feel and more than one measure, so that they can see that, okay, versus last year, this is the thing, or versus deduction, this is the thing. So how we can do it in Power BI, having the similar look and feel. So what we have done is, instead of using the heat map, the standard visual, we have used the matrix. This is just a standard matrix. And what we have done here is we have used, so for that, we have a measure here already, which is sales versus deductions. And what we have done is this we used as a value. And here what we are doing is just having the sales amount, and then unique at 10 for a line feed, and again then the rest of the values, and if the value is not, then we are passing it as a blank. So this is also a simple DAX code which helps us to concatenate each of these values and show them as a single figure in our matrix. And we are using this one, sales versus deduction, in our values set here. And then for the color code, which we usually have in a heat map, we have just used it here as in the conditional formatting. Just select the sales versus deductions, and the background color, we just switched it on. And in the advanced control, we just have these ranges and the respective color coding. It can be done as per our requirement. And we have it. It gives us a look and feel of these. And if we see that we can change the month, and here the value gets changed automatically. So this is the way it works, and we can give a look and feel of the heat map using a standard visual for matrix from Power BI. And end of the day, we achieve a look and feel which is similar to a third-party tool called Tableau. Now, moving on to this one, which is again another trick, which is using the Power BI out of the box tool. And it is like a simple properties we are using in Power BI, but which will give a huge visual appeal to the users and will be really helpful. Let's see what is being done here. So we have a bar chart. It's a simple bar chart where we can see like the figures for net sales amount for a few of the months here. But we have data, but we cannot see it. If we scroll it, we can see it. Whereas here, it looks much better, right? We can have the complete visibility till December at one glance. So for that one, what we can do is we have the space here. We can see how it works. It's a simple bar chart, and we can just scroll it and we can see other figures. To make everything together, what we can do is just going to the x-axis. We just went to the category width and make it 20. That's it. Till December, it's here. And it gives us more granular control. For example, we would like to control the padding. So if we, instead of 40, we make it 20 and it is there. So it's really helpful for us without a single line of code or a single complex configuration. We are able to show all the net sales amount for entire year in one go. Now, surely the six tricks that we went through is not an exhaustive list. So let's walk through how I get the best solution. So first, when a problem comes, we need to evaluate. So understand the visual, identify the components that we have here, come back to Power BI in the next stage and see what is the limitations in Power BI, what is the product gaps. Third one is having the workaround. So it is not available at this moment in Power BI, but as Power BI is an incremental tool, it will be, may or may not come in future. But at this moment, we need to find a workaround. So what is that? We can either look for a custom visual, just look for the certified one because they are tested and validated. We can have the existing feature, or we can hack a feature. So like the last example we have seen, that is for the existing feature, right? And hacker feature is like the stacked column chart, which we have used for a waterfall chart. So these kind of tricks and tips, if we apply and we come up with a workaround, next step will be to implement it and to share it with the community, with your friends and team members, and submit an idea in Power BI. I have just included the link here, ideas.powerbi.com. Then maybe, you don't know, tomorrow it may be picked up by the Power BI development team and it can be made out of the box available for you. Here for the references for DAX, I have just given some of the snippets once again. Let's see, for the measure slicer, we have just used a variable and we have just used the switch function here to return the respective slices. And then for the dynamic axis, we have used the if condition and the related functions here. And then for the heat map, we have just used a code snippet where it is concatenating two values here. If you want to know more, then there are a lot of like code snippets and functions available in the community from various users. And if you're really interested, then you can go through that. It really helps us to extend our visuals and take our analytics to the next level. Now coming to the further references for tips and tricks, one is the Azure Blob Storage for getting the dynamic map images, flag images, which I mentioned. So this link will give us the step-by-step that how we can do that. And next one is the refresh Power BI dataset externally. So what it will do is we have some requirements sometimes where we see this as we don't know when the data will be loaded. It may be weekly, it may be monthly, and we don't want to schedule it in a particular interval in Power BI service. As many of us know that Power BI service will have an option to set the schedule the data set refresh for the reports and the dashboards, but it can be externally triggered, for example, at the end of the data pipeline, whenever the data loaded ends. So it's a bit tricky, but this link is useful for us to understand whatever we need to do step by step. And the last one here is the incremental refresh one for the large tables. So for example, we have some fact tables. And in this fact tables, we don't want to refresh the entire data at any point of time. We can't afford to. So we just need to get the latest data which is coming through. And this is completely out of the box in Power BI with some clicks. And just one thing we need to keep in mind here, that we need a date time field in that particular table for configuring this, so that it just takes the latest dates after whatever it has last loaded. Then I've just included here the DAX guide. And finally, the Power BI demo file, which I'm referring here, a OneDrive link is there, where it will be possible to download and see the data sets and the tricks which have been used here. Wow, hard to believe that we are already at our time. And hopefully you found at least one thing from the session today which will be able to apply, and it will be helpful for you. You will be receiving a feedback form, and I would love to hear that what you have learned from this session. If you can drop it in the feedback survey. And if you have really enjoyed this session, I would say that you can go ahead and look out for other sessions in Scottish Summit, like other tips and tricks more on Power BI area itself is coming from Rui Romano. And some of the tips on the financial data side from Rishi Sapra, which will be really interesting. And for this session, if you were stuck or if you have any specific questions for the approaches that we have gone through, then just feel free to contact me in any of these methods which are listed here. And thank you for your time. And I look forward to hear from you how the tips have helped you, and look forward to connect you during the summit. Thank you. Thanks for your time.